Hello, my name is Linda Clark. I am married to Gregory Clark, and together we have 6 beautiful children, 3 girls and 3 boys. I am an international recording artist, and I work in the federal government as an organizational management professional. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and I was raised, ironically, in the South, in Greenville, Alabama. Roll Tide. Growing up, my family called me Lynn. Most near and dear to me, they call me Lynn. Some call me Bug. Some called me Lynn Bug. Don't ask me why, but that was my nickname growing up. Interestingly enough, my husband's middle name is Lynn. I was very outgoing as a child. I was a happy child, the life of the party, if you will. Similarly to now, I loved making people laugh. I loved getting the attention of others, whereby turning cartwheels, telling jokes, singing a song. I just loved the joy of laughter, and however I could make people laugh, I would do that as a child. I was number 2 of 5 children. We had a large family, mom and dad. I was the first girl in my family, and we were really close to aunts, grandmothers, cousins. Actually, interestingly, I have a set of double cousins. Our parents are siblings, so we have the same blood on both sides. So we have the same last name growing up, and although we were first cousins, we both share aunts and uncles. So we call ourselves brothers and cousins. So very close family. Their parents and my parents are siblings. Our mothers are sisters, and our fathers are brothers. Growing up, family was everything. Although I can't recall as a child, I do know based off of what was shared with me that born in Michigan, we relocated to Alabama when I was very young. And that was because of my family's and my father's tight-knit relationship with his mother. And although he was very successful in Detroit, he wanted to move back and be near his aging mother. My grandmothers, my mother's mother and my father's mother, were very close. Actually, they were best friends. So we spent a lot of times, a lot of family traditions during the holidays, sharing and caring, spending the nights, God always in the center. We typically went to church together from Sunday to Sunday, revivals. It was just really all about family all the time. And that's something that really stuck out to me growing up. The close-knit. We didn't have a super large family, but we were a tight-knit family that loved each other and stayed together and worshiped together and just loved each other. That's something that was really important to me and to my family. Some of the hardest moments I had while growing up was being what I referred to as the black sheep of the family. Not just in obvious traits. For instance, I'm the shortest in my family. I'm the darkest. I had more melanin than anybody in my family. And what was so funny is that my brother used to always joke around with me. It's like, you were adopted. You were adopted in me. It was undeniable that I looked just like my mother. But nevertheless, when he said that, it was something that, wow, I am a little different from everybody. Everybody's lighter than me. Everybody's taller than me. He would tell me little things, and I took him to heart. We got you out of the sewage. It was like, really? So I think trying to prove I belonged as a child was probably the hardest for me. I was raised in a very rural area in Alabama. And although it was integrated, I found it challenging to stand out, to be recognized for who I was, even though I was still trying to figure out who I was at that time. Yeah, standing out and proving myself, a lot of what I still do today. The person that had the strongest influence on my life, particularly growing up, was probably my father. My life is, in every area of my life, you can see my mom and dad, and I'm thankful that they're still here today. But I was and am a daddy's girl. Daddy had significant influence on my life. I can see a lot of the decisions that I made were fashioned as a result of the relationship that I had with my dad. Whether it was career, whether it's in the musical attributes, whether it was in the getting the results, the desired results out of a thing, I can see a lot of that came from Dad. But I don't know if it was the first. Coincidentally, that I can recall, the first painful experience growing up dealt with the most influential person in my life, my father. I believe when I was around 16-ish. No, I had to be 16 because I was working. I recall meeting a young man in a video store, and the gentleman and I exchanged numbers, and I went back home that day, and I was talking on the phone with this gentleman, and lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, my father picked up the other phone, and he overheard or eavesdropping on the conversation. Well, he put two and two together and realized the man that I was talking to was a married man. Not only did he come into the house and read me the riot act, but he actually put me in the car, drove me to the video store, and proceeded to bring the man out and, asked him, do you know how old this child is? Do you know all of this? Embarrassed me, all get out, which led me to be very secretive and very private about whom I was interested in. I felt like at that point he had just caused me to close off from him and maintain secrets because he would never embarrass me like that again. So that was one of the most painful experiences because my father, the man in whom I loved and cherished, embarrassed me publicly. It showed up in ways which I believe to be hypocritical. My father, a very handsome man who got a lot of attention from ladies all around, and bow-legged, beautiful smile and dimples. But I saw the women flirt with my father, and likewise, I saw my father flirt with the women. And internally, I would question his hypocrisy. It's like, how dare you chastise me for doing something that you now are doing? So that was painful for me to see. And I never brought it to his attention, but I'd stand back, I'd watch, I'd take notes, and just continue to move in silence. After high school, my family, we weren't rich. We weren't poor either. But I felt it an obligation to not put my parents under such pressure where they had to pay for me to go to school. They probably could have. I don't know. I didn't want to put myself in a position to ask and then be put down or told no. So I began to discover ways that I could fend for myself. What can I do? What do I have? Use what's in your hand, right? So what did I have? What I did have was a voice. I was a singer. I sang all the way through high school, junior high, and I was made aware of an opportunity to audition for a jazz ensemble at a community college. I auditioned, I received the part, and I was awarded a full ride at LBW Community College in Andalusia, Alabama. That was my way out. So after high school, I went to college singing, and I was the only Black in this group. And though it was something that a lot of faculty, students, my community was very proud of, after a while it became a little heavy. It was a heavy load and it was a very heavy responsibility for me to carry. And I started partying, I started doing drugs, started doing everything else. And I know that I wasn't raised this way. And I use oftentimes the word, I was heading for self-destruction. And I remember telling myself, if you don't get up out of this situation, I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. So what are my options? I always find myself at crossroads asking, what are my options? One of my options was to go back home. Home was always available. That's one thing I can say about home. It was always there, is still there, but that really wasn't an option for me. I didn't want it to be. My only other option was to join the military. My brother had already joined, and so that was a consideration. When I was at the crossroad, I remember hearing my brother say, you'll never make it in the Army because you don't like being told what to do. What did I say? Challenge on. You got it. That's what I'm going to do. So I enlisted into the United States Army. And I actually had to go sit and speak with the dean at the community college because I needed to be released from my obligation without paying back the tuition that I was asking to be released from. So I found myself in the military, U.S. Army, as a 27 Echo. Some of you may know what that is, but most of you probably don't. 27 Echo is a tow and dragon repairer. Missile maintenance is what I did. My first duty station after leaving basic and AIT in Huntsville, Alabama, was Fort Wainwright, Alaska. My experience in the military was eye-opening, rewarding, and yes, scary. My first duty station, again, led me to Fort Wainwright, Alaska, from Alabama to Alaska. Who would have thought? And I was the only female in my detachment, 199th Ordnance Detachment. It was an amazing experience working on the missile launchers. I did a lot of field time. It was freezing in Alaska, but it was also beautiful in the summer times. I got pregnant in the military. Well, let me back up. I married. I met my first love in the military. Married shortly thereafter. A couple of years later, we had our first child in the military. When I was in Alaska, I auditioned for a talent show. Interestingly enough, my husband at that time also auditioned. We were in the same talent show, he dancing with his friends and I singing and playing the piano. I remember singing Imagine all the people living for today. John Lennon, I believe, wrote that song. I won that talent show. And as a result of winning the talent show, the U.S. Army Band contacted me and gave me an opportunity to sing at special functions and events in and around the state of Alaska. An amazing opportunity that, once again, it's like, how did I get here? How did I land this opportunity? It was that opportunity that afforded me the opportunity to meet greats such as General Retired Colin Powell. I actually shook Colin Powell's hand. He gave me a coin as I sang one of his favorites, Wind Beneath My Wings. But I went on to serve for a total of 7 years. And now I work actually for the government doing organizational management. So although I'm not in the green suit anymore, I still work for the warfighter. So I was married in when was it? 91. Jesus. Okay. So within 1 year of relocating to Fort Wainwright, Alaska, I met Mr. Dumars, the husband of my 3 beautiful children. That marriage lasted for 12 years, or did it? Throughout the marriage, we were separated many times. While we were the loves of each other's lives, we were young. We were very, very young, and we partied a lot. We met and enjoyed dancing a lot, but little did I know that dancing was only an indication of what I would be up against in my marriage. I like to say that my ex-husband, loved the streets. He was married to me, but he was also married to the streets. And with the streets, I could not compete. He loved hanging out with his buddies. He loved going out, not telling me where he was. And that really did a number on my heart, on my patience, on my mind. Why wasn't I enough for him to stay in the house with me? And even as the children started coming along, why wasn't it enough? My first child, I endured a really, really traumatic experience. My first child was due in December of '92. And I remember so clearly when my water broke in the middle of the night. We were heading to the hospital, and upon arriving, everything was kosher. I was like, yes, 24 hours later, we're gonna have a baby girl. Everything is gonna be great. The labor pains grew intensely, but something began to happen. My daughter went into fetal distress. Her heart rate continued to plummet, and that heightened the awareness of the obstetrician. And they warned me that if it continued to happen, we would have to have an emergency cesarean. And I'm thinking, wait, that wasn't the plan, but what does that look like? So we were still pressing and turning on your left side, get the oxygen, do everything that you can do to make sure that, your daughter comes out safely. So we continued to do that, but nevertheless, her heart rate continued to drop. And everybody was freaking out around me. So guess what? I started to freak out too. Dr. Chen, never forget that. Dr. Chen came in and it's like, we're going to have to go in and take her. And immediately everything started happening so quickly. They came and started prepping me for surgery. And I was like, wait, what's happening? Can't we just get through this? I'll breathe. I'll do everything that I need to do. Can we just get through this? But no, they say if we don't take her, she won't make it. So they prepared me for surgery. I thought my husband had been there up until that point, holding my hand, helping me breathe, all of the good things that a husband does. But at that time, because everything was moving so quickly, he could not go into the OR with me. So after being prepped, I remember being taken to the OR, and I remember a mask being placed over my face. And as I'm counting backwards, I remember this like it was yesterday. As I'm counting backwards, I feel a sharp pain in my abdomen. And I can hear myself in my head shouting, wait, it's too soon. I can still feel it. I can still feel you cutting on me. I'm not under yet. That was the last memory before I woke up and I see my baby girl. So just like the Bible says, when a mother's in distress and pain, when she sees her child, she forgets it all. Yeah, I didn't think about the pain anymore because that pain was then replaced by the vision of my beautiful baby girl. Little did I know, a couple hours later, I would experience what I know now as my first panic attack. I didn't know what it was at that time. I just know my heart rate started increasing, or so I thought. I felt like I was hyperventilating, and a fear came over me like I had never known. And I thought my life was over, was going to be over. The doctors didn't know, the nurses didn't know. Well, maybe it was the medication you're having a reaction to. So, okay, yeah, you said that. I don't know. This is my first time in a hospital. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it was the pizza. I don't know. Maybe it was the meds. But nevertheless, it subsided. Okay, I'm good. And I stayed in the hospital for a week. But within that week, there were several episodes of this happening that nobody could put a name to. And so I went home and I coped. Whether these attacks came, just breathe through it. Whatever they were. And I remember being told, well, it may feel like your heart rate is racing, but it really is not. See, we took your blood pressure, so it's all in your head. It's all in my head. So then I have to talk myself off the ledge every time I feel what I think I'm feeling and breathe through it. Ultimately, they did finally diagnose me with having anxiety attacks. And that ordeal that I experienced was as a result of a post-traumatic syndrome, something I went through. And that is how my body and my mind was dealing with that particular ordeal. And interestingly, not interesting, but unfortunately, I still deal with some of those attacks today, but I'm fortunate enough to know how to work through those ordeals. That doesn't make me better or worse. It just is what it is. And they have lessened significantly. However, it is something that I deal with day to day. I went on to have more children. My beautiful son, David. David's birth was not similar, but he has his own place. David, I had been so stressed out with David when I was pregnant with him as a result of going through with my husband, who was at the club most of the time or wherever he was. I was stressed and didn't know I was stressed. They say stress is a silent killer. Stress didn't take me out, but it almost took my son out. And I had no idea that he was at risk. When I went to one of my appointments with my son, my blood pressure was high. Upon checking my blood pressure, the attending physician that day was not even my regular obstetrician. He checked my blood pressure. It's like, something is a little fishy here. He went on to check my fluids. Fluid was low. It's like, no, something's not right. They actually induced my labor a month prior to my due date. When my son was born, he weighed 4 pounds, 6 ounces. And what I learned later is that as a result of stress, among other things, my placenta had detached from my uterus, and my son actually lost weight while he was in my uterus. And it was only the grace of God that I was a little upset, believe it or not, that my regular obstetrician wasn't there that day. But had it not been for the grace of God, I don't know if that my regular obstetrician would have even paid attention to that. Sometimes it takes someone who's not so close to a thing to see what others who are very close to it miss every single day. My son is thriving, 25 years old today. I overheard the doctor say, yeah, he might survive, but he's probably will have some mental issues. I rebuked it right then. I called my son King David. He was King David on day one, and he's King David today. But my husband and I went through our ordeals of infidelity, distrust, mistrust, separations. Like I said, we always came back together and made a baby. But we always came back together. We always continued trying to recoup what we lost. But then 12 years later, we had just moved too far from each other to get back to that place where we really desired. And it was shortly after I'd had our last baby girl, Trinity. And if I could tell you a quick story about Trinity, Trinity was conceived 6 months after I had King David. And baby, Trinity was not planned. As you can probably imagine, the husband and I were in a really, really tough place. I don't know if he thought I tried to entrap him and trying to keep him in the marriage. And that was not the case. Actually, it was Valentine's Day, and I was trying to do something special. And so I thought I was nursing, so I didn't think I could get pregnant. But surprise, God had other plans. I found out that I was pregnant on April Fool's Day, and I thought it was all a big joke, but God was the only one that was laughing. I went to visit my mother that year. It was around Easter, and I had not yet told her that I was expecting another child. I get a phone call from a family friend who has no children. She was an older lady who had never birthed any natural children. She was a retired librarian and very close to my mom and dad. She called the house. I answered the phone. And I wasn't really in the mood to talk to the old lady. I just wasn't. But I tried to rush her off the phone. Do you want to speak to mom? She's like, yeah. But I'm just going to see how you're doing. How are you doing? And I'm rolling my eyes on the phone. And I'm fine. Do you want to talk to mama? So she proceeded to ask me questions about my family. And I'm thinking, where's this coming from? I remember her asking me, how are the children? And I'm like, they're fine. She don't know that I'm pregnant. They're fine. Are you going to have any more? She asks. And I didn't say anything. And she responded, if you do, just be thankful. Just be thankful. Because children are a gift from God. It was at that moment that I knew I was in God's perfect timing. And the child that I had not disclosed to anyone that I was carrying was God's wink to me that he loved me and he was with me. And she was my third child. And I named her purposely Trinity. And I said, she's going to complete this circle. I'm going to fix it after this. But I'm thanking God for my Trinity, my baby girl. And I gave birth to Trinity. And it was a beautiful birth. No issues, no complications. 9 months later. Now I find myself divorced with 3 children, all under the age of 15. What in the world is I'm going to do with these babies? Well, I am blessed to have had their father very much a part of their lives. Although we were not under the same roof, we weren't still cohabitating in marriage, in a union with each other. He honored the commitment to see his children. That's the least he did, to see his children every other weekend. He had a very active role in their lives, and I'm grateful for that. I bought a house a year later. So, although I was divorced, I wasn't dead. I didn't stop. I know there's a saying that my spiritual grandfather, Apostle Leroy Thompson, always says, there's always more. And even back then, before I connected with this man of God, there was something within me that never gave up, despite the blows, despite the challenges. I had to keep going. I served diligently as a worship leader in a local church. I had a great job. But I always had multiple streams of income because I didn't just want to do the bare minimum for my children. They were very involved in school and church activities. And so we thrived. We thrived together. And we're doing good. And then arose an opportunity for me to apply for a job in Northern Virginia because their father, who was still in the active Army at that time, he actually relocated to Northern Virginia. So I have a choice to make. Either he gets to see them only once a month, or you can get a job and move up there and you can maintain and assist him, if you will, in maintaining a close relationship with his children. Now, some would say I was running behind the ex-husband, but no, I was running behind the opportunity to not be with these children myself and maintaining some accountability between my children and their father. So I applied for a job, and I actually got a job in Northern Virginia. And that was probably one of the scariest times of my life when, how do I do this? I've never moved anywhere with 3 children before. How am I going to afford this? What if it doesn't work out? I don't know what to do. I remember calling my brother, asking him, should I? Here are the cards that's been dealt me. What do I do? He said, take it. Do it afraid. And that's what I did. I took the jump. I took the leap. It was very fearful. I did it. And I'm grateful that I did it. There were a lot of things that I couldn't do at that time because of the obligations. But I needed to show my children that you can do anything that's such a cliche. You can do anything you put your mind to. But doing it opposed to saying it was really important for them to see. Not only did I go after the promotion, and yeah, they had to leave their friends, and they probably are still a little angry with me about that, but I went back to school. I wanted my children to see that although I dropped out of college and joined the military, you can go back. I went back. I got my undergrad. I went back. I got my master's degree. They saw that. They saw that hard work pays off. Even if you're afraid to do it, one step at a time, you can do it. In walks Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark was active military, and when I worked at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, I used to have daily interactions with Mr. Clark. He was a customer of mine. And Mr. Clark was very friendly with all the ladies, but particularly friendly with me. I remember one hot summer day, he came in and he surprised all the ladies in the office with ices from 7-Eleven. And I'm thinking, you want to take all this out? You just want to take me out. But he eventually asked me out. Mr. Clark was also a divorcee. And we decided to take things really, really slow. Because if we ever wanted to take that leap of faith into marriage again, we wanted it to be the last leap of faith. Mr. Clark and I dated over 5 years before we actually married again. We wanted to do it God's way. We wanted to take our time, not rush into anything. Again, we dated over long distance in the same city. And we eventually married on 08/08, which was our new beginning. I believe one of the most difficult pains, not the only, but one of the most significant pains I have had to endure was the death of my marriage. That's exactly what it was. It was a death. And I had never really mourned death before. I had all my close family members, all my siblings. So I didn't know what death looked like. I didn't even know what divorce looked like at that time. That was supposed to be my forever. I recall marrying my husband on June 21st, which ironically is the same anniversary as my mom and dad. I wanted to share that with them. They made it look so easy. So surely, if I married the same day, maybe something would rub off on us. I felt like such a disappointment when I couldn't make my marriage work. And I know it takes two. But I felt like, what are they going to say? What will I look like? What about the children? Did I do everything that I absolutely could to keep this marriage intact? And there were many times, even after I divorced, the answer was no. I recall standing in the courtroom when we were making the final decree to our divorce, and the judge asked, "Is there anything that I can do?" And pride, that's exactly what it was. Pride compelled me to say, nope, I'm done. It's a wrap. And he responded, no. And literally, almost the same way that Judas, was it Judas who denied Jesus when he said it the third time? And that was Paul. You're going to deny Jesus 3 times. And the third time when the cock crew, he immediately knew that what he had said. As soon as I said no, I felt something. It's like you were not honest with yourself. And I think I regretted for a long time telling the judge no, because I was tired. I was tired of trying, tired of the redo, tired of another separation. And I just want to get off this train. I want to get off this roller coaster. But I'm the type of person that never gives up. I was just tired, and I was ready for something new. I was ready to be done with the disappointments, not realizing that the disappointment that was awaiting me outside the court door was going to be the hugest of disappointments I had ever faced. And so I had to sit with that. I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed to be divorced. I was a born again believer who really didn't believe in divorce, but yet I was the one who filed. So I felt like I took on the responsibility myself for allowing that marriage to fail. I'd taken my children's father away from them. It was a mess. And who wants a woman with 3 children after divorce? Did I seal my fate? So all of these things flooded my mind. I didn't know how to recover from it. So the only thing that I knew was to just dig in and try to be successful. Fine, I don't need a man. Fine. I'll use a man, but I don't need a man. But I was hurting on the inside. And I was disguising what really was for something else. And I covered it up with success. That's exactly what I did. Success was my drug of choice. How one recovers from a decision or choice that they made after they realize it wasn't the right one is first acknowledging that that was not the right choice. Well, obviously we can't go back and change the past. We hear the saying, hindsight is 20/20. And that's why I pray for insight 20/20. I want to see clearly what's before me versus seeing 20/20 clearly what's behind me. Second, I had to forgive myself. It's easier to forgive somebody else than it is to forgive myself. So I was super duper hard on myself for choices that I'd made. But I was determined to learn from those mistakes, from those choices. Because at the time, I didn't think they were any mistakes. I thought I was doing what was best for me, what was best for my children. I would do a lot of reflection. And now I do a lot of inflection. I don't make choices so quickly. I seek God in all his ways before I make a choice about how things impact me, about how things impact those I love. And I release myself from those decisions. Again, it's easier said than done, but it's a choice that I constantly make. And every new day of grace that I'm given, I have to extend grace to myself, just as God extends grace to me. And being Mrs. Clark has given me that new grace, my new beginning. What do I know for sure? I know for sure that I was created to stand out. I know for sure that a person's gift will make room for them. I've seen it all my life. No matter where I've gone, God has placed me in a room full of 10 people, a room full of 10,000 people. I had to do the work, but God did the most work by pushing me to the front of the room. I couldn't have done what God has done for me in my life. And I do know for sure that we have to be careful what we judge, because it's that thing that we judge that will also be judged. And I've learned over time that we also have to be careful. I have to be careful not to despise a thing or hate a thing, because before you realize it, you too will have become that thing. I've seen it. And it took the eyes, just like in the Bible, James, looking in a mirror and seeing myself. Who is this woman and what has she become? I had become that thing that I hated so much, that critical person, that person who wanted to get back at somebody for hurting me, that person who wanted to pay back and mirror all of the hurt that was caused to me. You've heard the saying, you can beat them. If you can't beat them, join them. I didn't like who I'd become in many cases in my life, but it took me seeing myself through the eyes of God and then making a conscious decision. That's not who I am. That's not who I'm going to be. And so what's important to me today is that I'm all that God has created me to be. At the end of the day, I want him to be proud of me. I want my children to be proud of me. I want my husband to be proud of me. But lastly, I want me to be proud of me. If I listen to what my heart is trying to tell me, I would unapologetically be authentically me. I remember in '93, the first opportunity after I gave my life to Christ, I sang a song by Yolanda Adams, and it says, "Riding Through the Storm." And the pastor at that time, may he rest in peace, Bishop Skinner, said that was beautiful. It was anointed. But baby, when you ride through some storms, you're going to be able to sing that song even more powerfully. I didn't know what he meant at that time. And I'm like, what storms are he talking about? What is he referring to? And the storms that he was referring to is life. When the storms of life are raging, God, the captain of our sea, of our storms, will be right there with us. A few years ago, I penned a similar song. So many times we ask God to get us out of what we're going through. But it's in the going through that God will show us what we're really made of. And it's only when we come out of that storm that we're able to tell somebody about the God who brought us through the storm. And God is saying to us in those times, I'ma let you go through it, but I will be with you. I know you see the fire, but it won't hurt you. See, I am the Lord your God, and you're in the palm of my hands. It's all a part of the plans, so go through. I'm gonna let you go through it, but I will be with you. Yes, I know you see the fire, it won't touch you. See, I am the Lord your God, and you're in the palm of my hands. It's all a part of the plans. It's all a part of the plan. Yes, it's all a part of the plans. Go through, go through, go through.